Until recently, you had to be in the building. If there was an emergency, occasionally they could send it off somewhere else. For example, Laura Bailey and Travis Willingham live out in California now, but occasionally we'll get something that they've already played the role, and we'd like to have them back because that's who everyone expects to hear. So we do have some friends out in California that will work with us, and we can say, hey, you can do it at the studio out there and send it back to us. With performers like that, we can pretty much trust that it will be fine because Travis and Laura know what they're doing. They've been at it for a while and they're quite capable of directing themselves if necessary, but usually there's a director on site to kind of help out with everything. Recently, with the technology, which thank goodness it came around, or thank goodness we finally invested in it, we do have things like Source Connect, where we can have a session in Houston, in New York, in California, and it can be run from the studio in Texas.
So the studio in Houston is still all done
right? We have, usually we will give it to an independent contractor that doesn't actually work for one of the other companies. So we have a few independent contractors out there that we can send the actors to their place, and they know where it is, they've been there a number of times. And we can control the session from where we are. So that helps out a lot. Any more questions about directing? Otherwise, this will be a very short panel, and Lisa will be confused because we've talked about everything. No more questions, cool.
What is your biggest challenge?
These days, I would say the biggest challenge in directing is, at least for me, I can't speak for Lisa, but at Funimation for me is the time crunch. Because we've started doing the broadcast dubs, and for those of you that don't know, our practice in broadcast dubs, we have 1 week turnarounds, some shows have 2 week turnarounds, 3 week turnarounds. I don't think we go as far as 4 week turnarounds. That's much too long for us. In the 2 week, they call it a 2 week process. The first few days of that is actually getting the translation and having a script writer write the script within 2 or 3 days, which is not normal compared to what we had always done before. But in order to get things out on a weekly basis, you have to. There's really no other choice. So they send out the translation to the adapter. The adapter writes a script, they send it in, it gets sent to us, and from that point, we have a week to cast it, to book everybody to get in, and to record it. So within 1 week, we will record an episode, which time-wise usually takes somewhere between 19 and 21 hours, tops 22 hours is what it usually is. And the rest of our time right now, the additional 19, 20 hours that's left, we're recording a DVD dub at the same time. So at least all of the day directors are working on 2 shows at once. And then we have a nighttime staff that comes in and works from 6 to 10 that each have a broadcast dub as well. So at any given time, there are usually roughly 18 broadcast dubs going on. Can be a little hectic. We don't have to. They have some chairs if you'd like one. We can make that happen. Are you tired?
I am. No, we thought the panel was at 12:30. But hi guys. Hi. Happy to be here. Respect for this. Hello. No.
We can try the other one.
This one?
Hey. I was just explaining to them, as you heard, the Funimation process that we're undergoing right now for broadcast dubbing to take up some time until you got here. I think they were waiting for you to ask questions because they were pretty much done with me.
They were like, I think it's just early in the morning.
And it's Sunday, it's the last day.
It's true, it's true. So I'll just weigh in over here, going over there. So I'm Lisa Ortiz. I work out of New York. Maybe I'm a little tired, but So currently I'm directing Pokemon, I was directing a bunch of video games I work consistently on a couple of different studios as opposed to you where you're based. The main base that I have is at Duart, which is where Pokemon is done. But I work out of various studios, not just in New York, but in other places. I work out of NYAV, and I worked out of a couple of things and directed projects on those. So that's just an introduction. I don't know. It's the standard.
The last question that got me launched into this was he was asking what are the greatest challenges as a director. That's what got me into the broadcast.
And you're talking about the broadcast as sound
But,
I
yeah.
think that's,
For you, what would you say are the difficulties?
I mean, I would imagine, I didn't know what started your thing, but it's about the same. The biggest challenges, I think, are, I mean, you can get material challenges, but the biggest challenges are timing, especially because we both work on broadcasts,
Right.
things that go to air, and a lot of the stuff that I have to do, that we have to set, we have goal dates for, just in case we get tired, or we want thrones, or we want to stand on the chairs, too. Those are all possibilities.
Well, we'll be short if we sit behind the table.
Yeah, the table is, I noticed that, like, this is like the highest table in the world. But once again, you're dealing with broadcasts, and you're dealing with, space man, we'll just go as we feel. But
And another thing.
exactly. I deal with deadlines for Disney.
Oh my goodness.
XD, so we have to have stuff in. A lot of times we try to get stuff ahead. We're also, there are like 12 other countries that depend on the materials that we put out. So for them to reach their deadlines, which is sometimes crazy because their sometimes deadlines are tighter than our deadlines, and they can't do anything until we do them, until we do the materials first. So that's the biggest thing, because in our case, you guys are, I know you guys have a little more autonomy with scripts and things like that,
Right.
even though you're not getting stuff. We're getting materials also. I mean, I can talk vaguely about some of the stuff. I won't go into details. But a lot of times we're getting materials from them, and we get the translations, we do all that stuff. But then everything goes back to the Pokemon company itself, and they're the ones, they're making sure that brand is set, they're making sure that all these things are set, and they're going over everything. They're very, very hands-on in everything that they do, which is great. But it does mean that there's a number of people who are
Right.
touching the materials before you do. So even though a script may be done, it may take a while for you to get final approval on it. And then by then it gets pretty tight into the deadlines. Not as tight as you guys, but I don't.
Well, a lot of that for us happens on the back end now, because there's no time to go through it, obviously, with the broadcast stuff. And I don't know if you've had this experience as well, but at least with Japan, not blaming them as a country or anything, but they're going to take whatever time it needs to give it the attention it deserves.
And they should.
And they should. I agree with that. It's theirs, and we should respect that. The problem is it doesn't really change the deadlines that have already been put out there. So a lot of times we wind up with, we will have to send back things and get their approval on it, but it's usually after we've already done at least the broadcast dub version. So.
Oh, well, so it's already hit air and you've sent it back for
Right,
approval?
right.
That's, I mean, occasionally
Because
gets it back.
we're
That's interesting.
eventually gonna turn it back around and put it on a DVD.
Gotcha.
And do the 5:1 mix of it, which we'll have to review it again. They will have to send it back and make sure all the terms are approved, make sure everything's right. And it varies from show to show. Some shows they demand that every detail be in place and nothing is wrong. And other shows, they go, it's fine,
Just put it.
just do it,
Just put it through.
send us
Yeah.
the check.
Exactly, get it done. It's interesting, and the stuff that I've worked on, like I worked at Psychic School Wars over at NYAB. We did a show called Magic Adventures that's still ongoing, and it was different because we weren't worried about that. Like they were very much in this particular case, they were very worried about. They just wanted the product to be set. They wanted it to be really good. They wanted us to look at it. Not that we're still looking to make sure everything's really good. The thing is that it's really nice when you can do that in a luxurious sort of pace, as opposed to all that same work and attention you want to give to something in a large thing in a very tight space. So, and that was really great because then you could go long. I mean, but there's been other stuff like I don't know. Have you ever worked on like games or anything like that?
I haven't directed any games. I've voiced in a few of them,
Right.
but I find that those, just the voicing part, a lot of times that's even a quicker turnaround.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
that's what I've had like script changes that came up to like the day before
Yeah,
the people are in
yeah.
town, but they're like, we're gonna rewrite these whole entire scenes. I'm like, that's production.
It is, and that's a good thing to note,
Yeah.
is if you are looking for a job with a relaxed atmosphere that runs at a comfortable pace, production is not for you.
Yeah.
Because that is just not the nature of production of any kind.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where you are or
Yeah.
what kind of production it is.
I mean, people usually think that, like, and that being said, like, what we're doing is different, but production on like film and stuff, they're even further along, like usually post is
Right.
the more relaxed of the productions. But yes, I don't know what the question was, but I think maybe we answered it.
So how do you integrate your voiceovers with all the sound effects? Are the sound effects original, or do you have to do your own?
That varies as well.
Yeah.
Sometimes we always call it M&E, music and
Music
elements,
effects, yeah.
or effects. Either one works.
Yeah, that's good. It's the same.
And sometimes, for example, there's a cat meowing, and that cat will already be in the elements. Now, our adapters don't know that when they're writing, so they have to make sure they put it in the script just in case we need it. That way, they don't get in trouble for not putting a cat in there when we needed a cat. Because if we don't see it in the script, most of the time we're going to assume that we don't need to get it. So it's kind of up to the director to make sure, hey, the cat's already in the elements, we don't need it. And then I can mark it off the script, we don't have to call someone in for that. But sometimes there's no cat, and the cat shows up throughout the whole episode, and you have to call someone in
Mhm.
to be the cat. Yeah.
Yeah, we have the same thing. I mean, obviously the wonders, creatures. There actually was, cats and dogs are a big thing.
They
There was
are a
another,
big thing.
that was a.
And of course,
it was
demons and monsters
and
all over the place.
Because you don't know where things are being brought. I'm down with this. This is another episode of Breakfast with Lisa Ortiz. We did that yesterday. Can I have two? Can I have one with these potatoes next? This is awesome. I'm down with that.
I'm good.
Breakfast tacos. I can't turn those down. We normally, a lot of times also, I don't know if you have this, we'll sometimes get, depending on what the show is, you get the actual show to watch first. Like you'll have the thing, and you don't have, the enemies are always split out. I always have to with my engineer, your engineer or someone else will
Right.
get them much later. So yeah, you don't know for a while what's happening. I did have a show that was held up, not Boogie, but that was held up because there was a cat and a dog in it. They're like, is this a real one? What's happening? We have to figure out sometimes whether creatures are pulled, if they're original. I have a bank of things that whether they're originals or if they're from Japan. We revoice all of them basically for the entire world. Japan comes in, they have theirs, whatever. There are a few of them that stay, that like Pikachu obviously and all that, but then the rest of them are voiced by the American cast, and those go out to all of the regions in the world, and that's what stays. But the other thing is I have worked on products that are new, like relay stuff, where you build, and we build the sound effects library, we build like a template, we built like a color palette of sounds, and had to like write and score music. And I was able to oversee that, and that's a really fun, cool process. Yeah, the music and the sound effects. The sound effects besides doing the animation stuff, I mean, I oversaw a lot of things in the post department, where I was a senior producer in the post department for years. And we worked on a show called, it's early and I have not had food, but there's one, Roger the Rickshaw, and a couple of other things, and we basically built it from the ground up. They gave us that, we did the prelay on it, which was recording everything, sent it back. There's a couple of them, we did it with Shaktiman and a couple of other things too. They sent everything back to us, and then we basically scored, created musical sound effects. We did all that for everything, and that's another process. It's a lot of fun to put together, but it is a lot of work. Luckily, we had a lot of time for that, because I don't know how these guys are putting together I know they have a bank of music that they have already to use
Right.
in some cases, but it's really, like thankfully, we don't have to really deal with that a lot. That stuff is already in
But it is
place.
another discipline.
Yeah, I mean, like the first day that I showed up in the post house to work, I remember one of our studio guys, Matt, who's one of the engineers. He mixes in the 5.1 when he comes in, and he had like a watermelon and a chain and like 2 knives, and I'm like, hey man, what's up? And he's like, we're doing a horror movie. I just have to stab the watermelon a little bit. It's okay, that's fine. And there's weird stuff like for water they'll use kitty litter and all sorts of weird things. So like that was fun when we actually built that stuff. And building sound effects is a really cool thing, and trying to sort all that stuff out and musically trying to make things fit. But yeah. So it's a different discipline.
That's called Foley's.
Foley.
I don't know. Whenever you do have rushed development schedules, how do you work through that?
You cry.
I don't cry,
Yeah.
but
You should. It's great. It's
but
fun.
there's very little that you can do other than do your best to make sure it gets done.
Yeah.
Because at least my bosses aren't going to have any sympathy for me not getting it done. They'll go, well, you had the time to do it. What happened? So it's just a matter of, you know how the job goes, now do it. Get on it.
And I do find, I mean, like, I was sympathizing with him over this yesterday, but when it's continuous, it's a little harder because there's not much flow. Like,
Right.
we get into, for me, like, I just came out of a really, really, really busy portion where, so I was there days, weekends, like way into the evening. You're pulling double duty. Sometimes if you have somebody else, sometimes they'll give you a second director or somebody who, if they know the product, if it's there, that can kind of catch some of the slack on it. And I mean, we really pulled together as a team at that point. Like, everybody could be a little stressed, but we try our best to try and pick up the pieces from other people and make sure everybody's getting the materials when they need, like pulling things in early, and so a lot of people and a lot of moving parts that are moving simultaneously. But you know, everybody's still trying to like get everything done at the same time. It's just you kind of have to up the game, and we do stay there much longer hours.
Gotta learn to work in the cracks. That's my old drama teacher used to always say that, because we spent a lot of time on drama. So she'd go, hey, your schoolwork has to be done or else you can't be in the plays. How do we do it though? There's no time. You have to learn to work in the cracks. And it's the same. It's not uncommon for the broadcast dubs, for example. Every time a new season comes around, which is every 3 months or so, you have just finished one broadcast dub, probably somewhere around the same time you're finishing a DVD dub. There is little to no break between when you're starting the next broadcast dub, and at that same time you have to watch what you're going to be doing for your next DVD dub. But there's more, because you're also going to get the show from either the last season or from about a year ago that is coming back now to go out for DVD. So you have to find time to review all of that. And sometimes those come back to back. So you'll have 2 shows that you have to watch for mix. Your new broadcast dub, the broadcast dub you just finished, the DVD you just finished, and starting a new DVD. So it's, you gotta use every bit of time that you can. And it sounds bad. It's, again, still the greatest job I've ever had. But I show up early. I set up for my day and get everything ready. I do my sessions. I generally work through lunch. Always bring my lunch. And I go until 6 o'clock, at which time there's a new group that is going to come into the studio because they're doing the nighttime sessions. So I then copy everything onto my thumb drive, go home, and continue to watch anime until I get it done. And that's a nightly thing until it's all finished. And then I feel relaxed doing a broadcast of it. Maybe that was their plan the whole time. Just
they're like,
give them so much work that the 2 shows won't feel like it's so bad.
what is it? That's an old expression. It's like if you have a bunch of people in a room, like add a goat. And like, and then once by the time you take it out, then they'll be very happy that they had what they had to begin with.
Exactly.
Cool.
All right. I know like most directors started out as voice actors first before they became one. And I know I saw on Twitter that Alexis Tipton recently, like earlier this year,
Yes.
started her first directing job on like Massive Music of Revenge or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just want to know like how long does it normally take of experience does it take to, I guess, qualify to handle a job of directing?
It really depends on the individual a
Uh-huh.
lot. Alexis is a very intelligent woman, and I don't think she had any problem making that transition at all. She kind of already knew what it entailed, but a lot of actors, when they think they want to make that transition, are very quickly surprised at what they do and don't have to work with. And they may not be quite ready for it yet. So sometimes that first show becomes very much trial by fire. And it's, all right, here you go, here's the show, get started. And they're like, this is, what am I supposed to do with this? And you go, that's all you get. Now,
Exactly. Go for
make
it.
it happen.
Run wild and be free.
But how do I know who to cast? You cast who you think is right for the part. And that's your responsibility.
Personal
You know?
opinion.
And you have to send a list to Tara and get everybody booked. And you have to make sure that you've got backups if that person can't do it. And it's all on you. That's why we hired you, so we don't have to do it.
That's true. I mean, we've had a couple people like who have directed for us also, who were directors, just directors first. And it's an interesting, that can be a transition from the stage to going to the microphone. Some people do it well, some people don't, because you're tweaking sort of different things. And also generally in theater, you have more time. You're not on the clock with what you're doing.
You get to practice.
Yeah, you get to practice, you get to go through things, and you're not, we have to get through a certain amount of cues in an hour with somebody, you're on a budget, and that was the first thing that I had, like, even working for the show, but then when I started producing stuff on my own, separately, I'm like, all right, so here's the thing, I know exactly how much this budget is, everything has to be done now. I'm like, you have an hour to say all these words. I'm like, I love you, I will talk about things later, here we go. But you have to kind of be on point doing that kind of stuff. I don't know. I mean, I really do think it, like you said, it depends on the person and how long they've been working and doing things. Teresa Professor, who was on the show in the interim right before I did for Frexwa. I actually had worked with her. I hired her for some game stuff that we've done, so we've worked together on other projects. She started off as a theater producer, and then she started doing audiobook direction stuff for years, which is a little bit different from what you do. They're all slightly different in medium than what you expect, and it took her a while to transition into doing this and getting used to the style also, because anime and all that has its own style. Yeah.
We've also had ADR engineers that have transitioned into directors, which actually works out pretty well a lot of times, because they've been on the technical side of it for so long, and if we need them to, they're capable of running their own sessions, which is beautiful. We can't let that get out too much, or else the company would be like, well, let's get all directors that run their own sessions.
Yeah, that's what happened
let's
by
not do
us.
that.
Then you'll be New York. There you go.
But Chris George transitioned from ADR to a director. Kyle Phillips transitioned from ADR. Tyler Walker was an engineer before he directed, so that happens quite a bit, actually.
Which makes sense. I mean, you've got people who are in there day in, day out with the process. So.
Right.
Other questions?
So I have a question kind of related to broadcast stuff. You mentioned that you're getting stuff from Japan on a really tight timeline. Are you getting like an overall story structure so you kind of know where things are going? Or
We're working on that because up until recently the answer is absolutely not, which can be problematic, and we've run into a few of those things. We've been pretty lucky so far, and there's really no other term I can use than lucky. It's anime, so a lot of times you guys know there will be a character introduced, and you don't know anything about this character. and they keep this character either in the shadows or their gender is somewhat ambiguous, and you don't know what they are. You don't even know by the voice if they're male or female, because they use females to play guys all the time. Occasionally, they'll use a guy to play a female. And so there will be those characters that you don't know who or what they are. And in a broadcast dub, that is very dangerous, because you could record all the way up to episode 6 or 7 when they're gonna make the big reveal, so you know that it's the villain, and you find out it's the wrong gender. And you go, crap, now we have to record all of that again for the DVD, but you have no other choice. That's really all we can do, and that is why some of the broadcast dubs have gone up with mistakes in them, because we just didn't know. We didn't have the information. Like I said, they are working on getting that, but a lot of times the Japanese don't want to part with that information too soon, because they don't want to risk it getting out. They want it to unfold naturally like it's supposed to, and if they give it to us, there's a greater chance that gets out there in the public somehow, and they don't want that, so they don't give us that information. Or even better, sometimes we get the Crunchyroll, shows, since we're kind of partner now, and sometimes they will name characters in the script just so they know, here's how we differentiate it, but it may not be the actual name of the character. So a lot of times, if you don't have an adapter that has noticed the changes that are made, you'll get these different names for the same character. And it's, again, that falls to the director to catch that and go, hey, they're calling this Secretary 11A, and that's Teacher 9B is who that is. So we need to get this person back in. And we don't have to cast anyone new, thank goodness, but they've got this wrong. We need to make sure that gets taken care of.
I've run into that a lot too, like with attributions and stuff, so I'll call it like attributions of who's there. You'll get like multiple people in the script. If you're going through kind of fast, you're like, oh, and you don't want to miss somebody, but a lot of times you're using, we just use a search feature and go through so you know who everybody is, but also will show up. There's always those little characters in the background. They just kind of like hang out. They show up like, hey. For us, sometimes, I don't know if you use the same time coders for all of them, if it's the one person working on it, but I know we'll use multiple time coders or multiple people who are looking at it, so maybe not all of them are seeing every single episode with that. So you'll have woman in the store, or woman B, and then no one who's working on that episode is seeing, except for the director, that she comes up 6 other times in the show, still in the background having like 3 lines. But no, she's actually a recurring character, and now she's called Woman B. And we've run into that also, like from seasons before. So I've had people, like someone comes up and they're named Woman. I'm like, that's great. And they're like, no, that's a woman from season 6. I'm like, of course it is. Of course it is, because I wasn't on the show then. But I know Woman from season 6 because her name is Woman. I searched for Woman. You know what I found? Everything. So you want to make sure that you have name stuff, but and then I'm always like a big proponent saying we just have to give this person a name, and we have to be able to go and look at that, because you don't know if a lot of times even smaller roles are coming back. You want to keep an eye on that.
And if for us, if we're ever worried about it, like if I see a character and I go, that character design is way too magnificent to be a background character. Then I go take a screen capture of that, and we'll compare it the next time we have an episode to make sure whether or not it is or is not this character, because we're going to see that one again. Because of the hair in the eyes. It's generally, you look at it and you go,
this one's been drawn with extra love. I'm not sure.
Hair's too awesome. We're going to see her again.
I know that Jerry uses music to decompress and relax. What do you do?
What do I do to decompress and relax? I was going to say drink, but I'm kidding. I don't know. I do actually. On my way home, I do a lot of climbing. I do rock climbing and I run, and I do like music, like typical stuff that you would normally do. But I do try like what he has said, like, working through lunch. I can't I can't do that anymore, like, especially because I know my studio, I also am there myself, I run board as well. So, I love it, I love what I do, but it's like back-to-back incessant on days, recording days, and I don't have a window, and that makes me insane. So, I try to make sure that I at least get out with enough time to go out and get into the sun, walk around if I can. I would try to run on break, but that's like luxurious because it's every hour that you take during the day, you're staying an extra hour at the end of the day. So I do try to break that up. But yeah, but that's I started like this year climbing. So a halfway point from where I jump on the train, I go to Queensboro, I can come off, and they're open till like midnight, and they also have a workstation. I can't really do any work there because I have a privacy screen, and like no one can see what I'm doing. But I, sometimes I'll do stuff there, and then climb for a little bit, let off a little bit of steam, and then go home. But I do in busier times when it's super, like recently where it's super, super busy and I'm not able to like exercise, I definitely feel it, especially sitting in a chair all day,
So it's a red or white?
Is what?
White.
Red or white wine? Oh, come on, do we have to, it's red, and it's actually bourbon, but that's okay. Not red bourbon, that would be different.
Sorry.
But no, we'll, and that's like on a long day, at the end of the day, if it's been very stressful, we'll all get together and, communal and just kind of like, just sit out and do that. But yeah, I do try and decompress and play music and things like that in between if I can, like, while I'm doing all my production work.
I think if not to be too humorous about it, but I think if a person in production were to always drink to settle themselves, they would wind up with a problem very quickly.
Yeah, like
Because-
in a week.
Yeah, stress is the name of the game.
Yeah.
And I wish it wasn't, but it is. Stress is what it's all about.
Well, you have an important job, so
Well, again, I think it really comes down to the individual. And I think that's why we have the directors we have at Funimation, at least, is because, they're in that position because they really care that everything gets done right.
Yeah.
Their name is associated with it, and that means something to them. To some of you that are very young out there, that used to be what everyone did in their jobs, was the best job you can do because that was a reflection of you. Unfortunately, the culture has kind of changed over the years where it becomes, screw those people, they don't pay me enough money anyway. And you try to get by with as little as you can. I understand that, totally, but if you have no pride in what you're doing, you should probably be in another occupation.
Yeah.
it's also called ambition.
That too.
It's ambition, but it's also it's like a personal accountability too, because you
Yes.
think like also who's watching it at the end of the day, and you want to be but exactly what you said, you want to be making sure that you're doing the best that you can, and so it's very easy to say, you know what, screw this, I'm going to leave at like 6, I'm going to do this, and then all of a sudden I'm like, it's 11:30 at night, and I just finished my review, and that's okay, you want to,
In anime, there's a very vocal minority that is out there that complains about everything, especially dubs. And it's probably the same 12 or 13 people that you always see on the internet, but it becomes a matter of I trust myself more than I do them. I will listen to their complaints, and there have been over the years, occasionally, I'll see one and I'll go, they have a point there, I should have considered that. But it happens very rarely. Most of the time I go, they don't have any idea what they're talking about. I know I did a good job with this, and I really don't need their approval. I wish for their approval, but if I don't get it, I don't get it, and I really don't care. Even if it's let's face it, sometimes, let's just be real, some shows are better than others. There are good shows, there are shows that are not as good. I'm not going to name any names, but at the end of the day, even if it is a bad show, it is my job to do a good dub of a bad show.
This is something we talk about, like your teachers, like put it in the cracks. This is one of my early teachers, my acting professors. she would always say, like, whatever she's like, you don't always get the choice of what you're gonna work
Exactly.
on. You don't always get the choices. Sometimes we can change dialogue, we can do things, sometimes you can't. You don't always get the choice to do that. And I've had this conversation sometimes even with like people in the booth or actually writers, like, we should change this. I'm like, you can't change it. I'm like, what you have to do and what your job is to take whatever you have and make it the best that it can possibly
The best
be.
you can do.
And sometimes, and there are people who can take something that's that is nothing and actually make it really really good and work. But that's your job. Your job is to take what you get and make it the best that you possibly can. Sometimes you have better tools. Sometimes you have better, materials. But you can still do a lot with what you have. And there's sometimes like some stuff that's like starts off not great can sometimes be something you're really proud about at the end.
It happens.
Sometimes it's not, but still.
Right. Yes.
With broadcast dubs, do you guys have like even a week break in between like the spring, fall, and winter seasons?
It depends on the schedule of the next show. There have been times, I think the most I've ever had in between is a week. This most recent one that I'm working on, there was no break at all. It was out of the old one into the new one. And I'm on my schedule now for the show I'm working on is, the show comes out, it airs on Friday. By Monday we will have a script, and by mid-Monday I need to have it in my cast list. And we start recording Tuesday, and we've got until the next week to get it done. That's it.
Yeah, I was saying I'm here for a week. I've made a break for myself, but in order to do that, I had to do all the episodes that I would have had to be doing now. So it was like you did twice as much work beforehand. And the last time I tried to take a break, I wound up having to cast 30 people for something that I came home with on the next, I had to cut my trip short and like going on Tuesday because they're doing all this stuff. The goal actually is a lot of times for us is not to have a break. If you have a break on there, I wind up picking up other gigs and other directing and other projects as well.
That's very true. Every production system that is out there looks at what is being used, what is not being used. They've got those studios there, and they're paying for those studios. They've got a director and an engineer in each of those studios all day long. They want to also have an actor in there, because otherwise, what are they paying for? So it's a matter of, keep the studio full, keep it going, keep it flowing.
So you guys don't take vacations that often?
Okay. Does a single director work on at a time? I think for the most part, there may be an exception to this, because I know sometimes shows come out that are like, oh, these are all 5-minute short episodes. Those people might work on 2. There might have been a couple of those that have happened, but for the most part, we just work on 1 broadcast dub at a time. But the daytime directors also have a DVD show. So we're each working on 2 shows at a time, and then the nighttime crew is working on 1 broadcast dub each at a time, because they only have 20 hours a week, essentially. I kind of feel sorry for them. They have less time than we do to get it done.
20 hours a week.
They have 20 hours a week, and a lot of times the scripts, by the line count, oh, there's 21 hours worth of stuff, there's 22 hours worth of stuff. Well, guess what? They're going to have to make that up somewhere, because the schedule is not changing. Yeah. But if need be, we'll work on weekends, we'll work late at
That's the
night.
thing.
We'll
So
do
you guys
whatever.
you'll create more hours like later
Right.
in the day.
If we have to.
That's-
We try to avoid it, but if we have to do it, then that's what we have to do.
In my schedule, it depends. Like I said, I've worked on, we've had 2 or 3 shows going on, and when Tom and I worked together, we used to direct, like, sometimes we would direct on the same project. We once had to put out, I think 76 episodes of a 12-minute show in like 2.5 months over the summer. So, and it was when we were doing Holy, yeah, and it's on Netflix now, but we actually had to, we would share back and forth, like we were second directors, but we would do that, and there was still other shows that we were working on at the same time. So we're doing those. We actually got a third director to come in, and it's because sometimes you're doing, I don't know how many episodes are in a season generally for you.
That varies as well. I think for most of the broadcast dubs, they're usually 12 or 13 episodes.
Okay.
Some will have continuing seasons where it winds up being 24 episodes.
Yeah.
And very rarely we'll have one that's like, oh, this is going to take you all year to do.
So yes, that's what, like where we're like, 'cause I know I have like 35 to 42 episodes a year that when we're going straight in. So at least there's, you can't say that because you don't even get an end in sight.
Right.
Like there's an end in sight. But it also depends on who you are and what you can keep in your head, because sometimes when you're working on multiple shows, I would imagine like the non-broadcast stuff, you're working on multiple episodes at the same time. Because that's what we're doing. Sometimes I'm working on like 5 different episodes at the same time.
It is not uncommon for me within probably about the first 2 or 3 days. Usually it doesn't take me any longer than that. But for the first 2 or 3 days of a new show, I'll go, all right, now I'm going to open up the line count for whatever this show is called. And then I have to sit there and go, oh yeah, that's right, it's this one. And then go look for it, find it. Because you just got done doing that with a couple other shows. You've memorized all these facts. And then at the end of it, it's like, okay, get that out of your brain. Here comes a whole new group of facts.
So you got to relearn every week.
Yes, you do.
I've done that too. I like opened up and I even like working on multiple episodes. I'm like, okay, so this is. I'm like, oh wait, no, a second. Okay, I know what we're doing here. This is a different episode, but it's great. You're gonna love this. It's gonna be awesome.
Kids are gonna love it.
Kids are gonna love it.
Yes.
Hi. So I'm going to kind of divert here a little bit because I have to be the
I like diversions.
I like diversions too. So I don't know if you remember, I asked you about that whole Connect 4 thing.
Oh.
Yesterday.
The Connect 4 thing.
So Miss Lisa, I asked Mr. Jewell if y'all had a competition on Connect 4, who would win. Now he did say that you were very smart. Now I'm smelling a bit of a challenge, so he said he might be able to
Why
put a
would
little
you
work
do
on
that?
it.
Why would you do that?
Because I would love to see a Connect 4 match between the two of you. Personally.
Now, okay, so
That's
here's-
just me.
Under the rules, there has to be a life-size Connect 4.
Yo, like,
But
you
that's
gotta
fine.
put me to work, man.
Mhm.
Okay.
Or some life-size Connect 4. That's fine.
So y'all
Hubcaps
gotta
have to
walk-
be able
Yeah,
to fit in
exactly.
there.
Yeah, that would make me feel comfortable.
Okay, so
Or
wait.
Frisbees, I guess Frisbees could work. They're light.
Frisbees would be
Okay,
good.
so that means we have to do like a whole Plinko kind of setup where y'all walk up and have a platform to be able to drop them in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did that at a concert. Well, it was very good. It really brings out the competitive spirit that is behind Connect 4.
Not only can I beat you at this game, I'll get up the ladder faster.
Exactly.
Okay. But I did, I kind of thought that was really awesome. But yeah, it's good to see you taking risks.
It's good.
I try to never overestimate myself. That's a mistake every time.
So do y'all think that what you guys do as ADRs helps you better be able to be actors, or do you just kind of keep the two separate?
I don't think you can keep them separate. I think
You can't keep them separate. No, it's. I find that in the directing, the actor brain kicks in anyway, and you start to look at maybe just in emphasis of the words in a particular sentence. You start, especially as the director, you're going, no, we need to emphasize this word because this is the operative word right now. And the sentence may be written as such that you wouldn't be able to tell if you didn't know the story. But as the director, knowing the story, you're like, no, don't emphasize that word, emphasize this word, because that's the one that's going to matter in bringing up this next line, which the actor doesn't have to think about. But you have to kind of keep it a running tally in your head as a director of, okay, this is where this is going, this is where this is leading us to. So I just have to get them to the point where they can deliver it in a way that can get us to the next point.
But I will say this though, as far as like directing the cool, positive, the other side of it, talking about making a better actor, is it's really great to be able to be in a booth with somebody and be in a booth with many, many people and see how different people work and like
Every actor is different.
Yeah. And you do pick up stuff, like, you do pick up things from that, like, you see how different people approach, like, no, I never would have done that way. Then also, I mean, you still tell them,
Yeah.
emphasize your word or do this, and you still that, I never would have done this way, but it's interesting that like, you start to see the perspectives that people come from, and I find that really cool.
I think another thing I've learned as an ADR director is sometimes you can get a little too involved, and you start to try and micromanage things, and you forget to ask yourself, okay, you can ask yourself, is that the way I would have read the line? And you can waste another 5 minutes going back and getting it the way you would have done it.
Right.
Or you can go, does it work?
Yeah.
Yes, it works. Well, then don't waste your time going back and getting it again.
Right.
If it works, it works. Not the way I would have done it, but it still works. And I have found, especially with the actors who've been at it for a while, the more you learn to let go of this needs to be the way I want it, the quicker it gets done, the happier the actors are. It just keeps everything going a lot more smoothly. And it doesn't all sound like the same reads,
Right.
which is much more enjoyable than a director that goes, no, read it this way. And then the next character comes in, no, read it this way. And then you go, well, the dub's good technically, but
But it all
everybody
sounds-
sounds the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and you wouldn't want to be the actor in that person's
No,
shoes either.
not at all.
Like, that would be not. Yeah.
I've learned to focus more on, are we keeping the voice? Are we in the right range? Pronouncing everything okay? Timing good? Well, then what is there to complain about?
Thank you.
Yes.
Is directing harder or easier when you're also one of the cast members?
It can work both ways. Sometimes, I mean, a lot of times, actually, I will cast someone that has been involved with the process, who of course I know to be a good actor. For example, if I see that Monica has written a script and it works great, and I see a character in that show that I go, Monica would be great for that part. Well, then why not just call Monica? She already knows what it looks like. She's already written the flaps. She knows how it's going to fit. That's going to save me hours, you know. So that's more time I can dedicate to the other things I need to do, and perhaps shorten the time that I'm in the studio doing things that could be done elsewhere. So it kind of goes both ways. I think I've only been in one or two things that I myself have directed. I usually try not to cast myself, but occasionally there will come a part that I go, well, it's in my wheelhouse. Might as well do it. I know more about the show than anybody else here does, so why not? It'll save us time.
Done the same thing sometimes. I don't, sometimes, it really depends. Sometimes I've directed myself. A lot of times I like to have another outside eye. I try not to do that.
Right.
Like I'll try to do it with, sometimes I'll do creatures or I'll do other stuff because I'm like, I got this and this is fine. That's stable all the time and I'll do this. But it also, it really depends on the show because there are shows that have been really easy and that you can. And then sometimes it does not save time to have me in the booth, or I don't care, but it takes me twice as long. I don't charge it back, but it takes twice as long because you, as meticulous as you are trying to be a director, then you become that double set of ears on yourself. So sometimes it can actually take you longer to do that, but and sometimes it's just fine. It's a good time. I didn't really answer your question. I'm gonna say,
No, you did.
yeah.
Do you guys see yourselves doing this for a long time? Or are you being required to do other things besides?
I do, well, but I've aspired to do other things for a long time. The reality of this world, at least, is that we need money in order to live. And Funimation provides me more money than I would be able to provide myself from doing the things I wanted to do. I'd be lucky to have a house if I just went off and did the things I wanted to do. But it's, you know, we're all working for somebody at the end of the day. It might as well be something that's fun and that I enjoy the process. I enjoy being a part of it. I know I've said it's the best job I've ever had, and I mean that wholeheartedly. For me, at least, it's also the easiest job I've ever had. So the appreciation is not lost on me at all. This is, you know, I'm not sweating my butt off in the middle of summertime doing some odd job that makes me tired and I barely get paid for. No thanks whatsoever, you know. At least this is something that is a lot closer to the things that I enjoy. So it's not a bad job to have if you're gonna, you know, and I'll do it as long as I can do it, if it doesn't drive me crazy.
Are you passing on to other directors?
Not passing on to anyone.
They have their job.
Yeah.
Mine, it's the thing.
Yeah.
Scratch yours, you scratch mine, type of thing.
You know, it's like other directors, you have to remember that as well. A lot of our directors are longtime voice actors. But if we're all doing broadcast dubs and DVD dubs, guess who has no time to be in your show?
That's the big thing with what you're saying is you wind up, there can be like a pendulum that swings. 'Cause
Right.
for a while when I started doing everything, I did that way. I was still performing and doing other things, but you wind up doing that more because it takes so much more of your time.
Right.
So you want to find a balance between doing, because I feel like it's the same thing. There's other things you want to do, but those are the same things you always wanted to do. This is part of like
Yes.
the circle of stuff. So you just want to keep doing what you would like to be doing as long as you can, as long as you can enjoy it. You just want to find the balance between being able to direct or produce or perform or do all that and make sure you're feeding both sides, you know, and you have time to do anything else.
Time is everything when you break it down. Money's important, but
Well, no, that's
Time is-
equally, that is even.
time is money,
Homes,
right?
exactly.
Time is money.
Having a home is an important thing. I heard.
Where would I keep my stuff?
Exactly.
Can't carry it around with me all the
But you
time.
wouldn't have any stuff, it'd be great. That's a
What's the project that has made both of you grow the most as directors? And why?
I will say, just for the sake of an answer, probably Free for me. And that is because there was so much backlash over it, internally and externally. And I knew for a fact that it was the same process we follow for every show. It just turned out that there was a very large fandom that wanted to complain about everything. And a lot of things they were wrong on. But at the same time, I was able to watch it later and try to think of some of these things they were saying, and I was like, it's like I said before, I was going, okay, they might have a point there. Maybe had I known that sooner, I wouldn't have done it that way. But it's done, and I'm not going back and doing it again. And at the end of it all, I tried to watch it, you know, to separate myself from it a little bit, give a little bit of time, and then watch it again. I was like, you know, there's nothing wrong with this dub at all. It works just fine. And they were complaints like, oh, the guys are too masculine.
I hate when guys are masculine.
You know, and the funny part was all of the actors that were the leads in that show, 2 of which are gay, were like, are you kidding me? They said that these characters were too masculine. And I was like, I know, but that's what they said. I agree with you, but I'm just saying the complaints are that the guys were too manly. Which, if you've seen the show, is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then it was things about complaints about pronunciations of names. One of which I was like, okay, they're probably right on that one. And then one of which was, they're completely wrong on that, and I wish they'd shut up about it. But for a long time, we didn't hear the end of it. It was just, you should have said it this way. And it's like, but
Well,
that's
we
not
did.
how you
That's
say
not how you
it.
say it.
Yes.
I just want to say, those people who complain about localizations of games and TV shows, they're the biggest ignorants on the face of the planet. They ask for a show or game in English, you give them a show or game in English, and they complain it's not Japanese enough.
Well, and you find out that that's really what they want to complain about. What they want to complain about is, these aren't the voice actors that did it for the Japanese. And you're like, well, yeah, because we do it in English. and they don't speak English. Some of them might, but probably not what you're used to hearing on an English dub.
Yes.
So, you know, it is something I keep in mind when I'm casting. That's probably one of the first things I look at, is who is similar in voice range that is in our actor bullpen that I can call on. And that's kind of how I go about casting certain shows. Sometimes you don't have someone available who is close to that voice, so you go, well, this person's not close to the voice, but he's an excellent actor, so he'll pull it off.
Yeah, he'll bring out the spirit of it.
He'll get the feeling right. So it varies. And sometimes you take a chance on someone new because you don't know what else to do.
Have you picked up any language? Japanese language?
I mean,
You do here and there.
but-
Everyone knows what baka means.
yeah, exactly. That's pretty much, you know.
Enough to make money.
Typical. I also like to just pretend sometimes they're just speaking Spanish just from inside. But sometimes it sounds. Yeah.
You're bilingual in Spanish?
Yeah, so that's so every once in a while I'll hear something and I'm like, you know, like you say, yeah, I don't know what it was the other day, but they would say something like, I'm like, did they just say they're speaking Japanese? It's okay. It just sounds similar. You know?
So you must pronounce very well Japanese.
You would think so. My best friend tells me I don't. He also just makes fun of me all the time, but he's Japanese, so yes. So he's like, he'll just go, what? Say it again? And I'm like, shut up, Jen.
Well, and I've had a couple conversations with a few people from Japan that work on anime, and time after time, they keep telling me there is no emphasis anywhere. In their minds, the way they're speaking the language, when they say a name, there's not any emphasis on anything. But that's their definition of emphasis. Because when we hear it as English speakers, we go, okay, they're emphasizing this particular syllable of this name. And they're like, no, there is no emphasis. You're like, but how do we say it if there's no emphasis? It's interesting, though.
Is there any, we've got 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Is there a last question?
Last 2-minute question.
Do you do any cameo voices?
You mean like cameo voices?
Well,
Like,
do you also do voices?
oh, like voices inside? Yeah, I mean, like, sometimes you do walk on and do some of that stuff. I like to think of cameos, like I like when people come to town and they're in town long enough to meet the record and then also meet the notes section.
Right.
For you, and I'm like, that's great. I'm like, I can put you in this one-off episode. That's a fun cameo to me. But, yeah. So I've been occasionally I can grab people. Like I recently grabbed someone who was in town and was able to like put them in something because literally, but I had to like push it. They were there, and I'm like, all right, I can record you this day. I'm like, and you have to be available just on Monday so that we can do our notes because then we have to ship it out on Tuesday. So if you can do that,
Yeah, right. Do me a favor, yeah.
then which was just cool. So it worked out. So occasionally it works out because I know we talked about this. Sometimes I'm not allowed to send things offsite.
Right.
You know? Yeah.
For us, a lot of times we have to do that. We'll have to look at who's in the studio that week and go, I'll take this guy. Because the minor characters in shows, you'll have somebody that shows up and literally says one line and then they're going, well, I can't in good conscience talk to our talent coordinator and go, hey, I want you to call this person in for a half hour, which is the least that we usually book by, and let's pay them for a half hour for this 5 seconds worth of work they're gonna do. I can't do that. So I'll maybe talk to the other directors, see who they have in, and go, hey, can I borrow so-and-so for a couple minutes? And they'll say yes or no, and well, yeah, that person's gonna be this part in my show.
So are you unionized or?
We are not unionized, because we're in Texas.
Yes. Yeah. We
Right to
no,
work
so
state.
I worked on both. Yeah, and I've worked on both projects, union and non-union.
It looks like our next panel's here.
Look at this sexy panel.
I
Hi,
know.
people. Look at you.
I love you, Dara. I love you, Lisa.
We love you
Love you
too.
too.
What about me?
So much love.
We love you too, Jessica, but we
Jessica.
thought you knew that
Yeah,
already.
no, I never. I'm insecure.
Okay.
I like that your hair matches the girl on your shirt.
So cute.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we're done. All right?
We're done.
Thank you guys for coming. Thank you for the questions.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching anime.
And just to let you girls know, the table is very tall.
Oh, that's from last night, our bad.
That's right, it's a very tall table. We're happy with it.
Mark, and we do have a line for the next panel, so if you want to see that, you do have to get in that line.